Okay, welcome everybody to I believe it's the 5th episode of Look for the Helpers. We were on a long hiatus with our other co-host, Megan Brady Palumbo, who cannot make it today. And she is an employee at Park Royal Hospital locally here in Fort Myers. And so we've come back after a long COVID hiatus. And here we are. I am so excited to introduce you to all of these people. Number one, we have a new co-host, Diana Herndon, who is the Division Chief of Logistics at Iona McGregor Fire Department. And then the rest of these badasses. Oh, we got some applause. Thank you. The rest of these badasses here. I cannot explain to you guys enough how excited I am to have this powerhouse panel here today, because we have the top 3 badasses in Lee County emergency services. And so we have up here, if you want to give a little wave, we have Chief Casey Allo, who is the Chief of the Emergency Dispatch Center in Fort Myers of Lee County. And next to him is Chief Paul DiCicco, who is the Chief of EMS in Fort Myers of Lee County, but we are stationed in Fort Myers. And we have the Chief of the Fire Department and a celebrity, if you guys don't know out there, a live rescue celebrity, shaking his head already, A&E's live rescue celebrity, Chief Tracy McMillion of the Fort Myers Fire Department. Welcome to Look for the Helpers podcast. I want to tell you just for a minute for all of you guys, that the reason that we called it Look for the Helpers podcast is because we really loved this Fred Rogers quote, which is, when I was a boy, I always feel compelled to give the quote, but the quote is, when I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people helping. And so the purpose of this podcast is to, initially we wanted to look into sort of the Fort Myers, Lee County community and talk to helpers. And so, like I said, we've done 4 episodes previously. Actually, Diana was on our very first episode with her husband, Steve Herndon, who is also a firefighter in Cape Coral. And they told their story. And so we're continuing to kind of look for helpers so that you can tell your stories and point out the wonderful things that you're all doing. So thank you for being here, everyone. And we're going to start with a couple of icebreakers. And so Diana's got like a little funky, funny question for you all.
All right, so we'll go just in order, I guess. So Chief Allo, Chief DiCicco, Chief McMillion. You're at a karaoke bar and you have to sing. What is your song of choice?
I honestly think I'm going to have to go with some 90s hip hop and go with nothing, probably with some Snoop Dogg and Dre.
Nice.
Any particular song?
Nothing But a G Thing.
All right.
Yep.
Baby.
That's what I'm going with.
If we were really high tech, at some point we'll get there, we would like dub that in right now. And
there's maybe a high school video out there of me doing that, actually. So.
Ooh, let's see what the internet magic can find us. All right, Chief DiCicco, how about you?
I would have to say probably like a Garth Brooks, Friends in Low Places, something like that.
Ooh, that's a
classic.
Good one.
That's the best Garth Brooks, I would say. I love it.
All right, Chief McMillion.
So I'm feeling a little pressure, but I'm gonna go some 90s, kind of some R&B, and a song by I think it was Shy, If I Ever Had to Love Again.
Oh, I love that song.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that. Just
Is that the one that's like, ooh, da-da-doo, da-da-doo?
Yes, that's it, Casey. Next wedding, we are doing it, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love that song. Now you're bringing me back.
Yeah, right?
I was living in Dorchester, Massachusetts at that time.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Sounds like we all need a karaoke night.
I think so. It'd be super fun.
Let's do that. Actually, Captain Shane Ratcliffe was recently talking about karaoke too. I said the same thing. I was like, let's go do it. Apparently he's a karaoke master, and he'll probably be mad at me for saying this on the podcast, but he was quite a singer apparently in his youth. So
Really?
Paul DiCicco, you're going to have to bust on him a little bit about that.
This is
All right,
happening.
I know. All right, so I have, I've got one more question for you. So I have a lot more questions, but I have a fun question for you. If you had to choose a superpower, what would your superpower be?
Yeah. I think I would choose the power to be able to have my body to heal itself,
Ooh, that's a
so that I could stick around and do good deeds for a long time.
Unbreakable.
good one. Unbreakable. That's a good one. What about you, Chief DiCicco?
Yes, he stole mine. I was going to say healing.
All right. That is a good one. It's probably the best. The best. What about you, Chief McMillion?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the same. No, I'll go with mind reading. I think and that's a scary place to go, but I think having the ability to read minds would be pretty exciting or scary. I'm not sure which
I would not spend much time in the same room with you.
one.
That's right. All right, awesome. All right, so now we're gonna get to some of the good stuff. And by good stuff, I mean showing a clip of our panel celebrity in live rescue right now. So I'm gonna share, bear with me, I'm gonna try to share my screen and show one of my favorite moments in live rescue. Hold on, let's see if it's gonna work.
I'm okay if it doesn't.
All right, wait, hang on. Okay, ready? Can you guys see it? Tell me if you can see it.
This is my car too.
Listen, but she a co-signer, okay?
This is both for our car.
She a co-signer. I told her to get out the car. First, she was on the car with my baby and herself.
So I'm gonna get out in a second. That's cool.
Huh?
I'm gonna get out and talk to you because we can't do this here. Y'all know.
I'm telling her like this.
I'm telling him to take me home.
She telling me take her all the way back home. Listen, I don't want her to get in the car because she gonna act a donkey.
No, I'm not. I just want to go home.
Let me put the talk thing. I ain't gonna lecture y'all, but we gotta talk. We gotta talk. We gotta talk. But listen, hold on.
I don't want her in the car. She gonna act crazy.
Hold on. So can we do something?
Oh, what's this? What's this?
No, that's just.
Oh, what's this? What's y'all here?
No, we're firefighters.
Oh, okay.
We're firefighters. So can we? That's your baby mama.
Yo, man.
You gotta take care of your baby mama because your baby need a mama.
But she violent. Look,
How far are you going?
I'm going right here.
Where's she going?
She going back where I just came from. Can you drop off to
We can try to work something out.
Winnie.
Can we get somewhere where you can work this out?
See, she wanna put violence to me. That's why she don't want to get no ride from nobody else.
Gotcha.
That's why I'm not opening the door.
So we'll probably have to call law enforcement. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't want to do that.
Don't let them drop you off. Cause you're not gonna get in the car and mess with me.
Yeah, well, we don't want to have anything cased up. She said she got her stuff.
It's not your
We're not
average
law
car.
enforcement. We don't want to get in there.
It's so awesome.
You got to just work it out.
Yeah, but it
Can't
can't
figure
work
something out.
out. She's not gonna be putting her hands on me. Then I end up going to jail over some.
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, you don't want that.
So I just she stayed.
I'm gonna fast
But
forward
you know,
to.
Call her right.
Oh, ma'am, do that. So listen to this.
This goes on and on and
Listen,
on.
ma'am, let me tell you, don't do that one.
We have to get on live rescue.
I want to go home.
No, you ain't going home in my car.
This ain't just your car.
It
This
is
is my
my
car
car.
too.
This is my car.
Oh no, it went to commercial. All right, so
We've been making joy for over 100 years. So the holiday sales event begins now with 0% APR financing.
Hey, we have to get our paid advertisements, right?
I know, right?
Right.
Cash and select Ford
This
SUVs.
podcast is sponsored by.
Built for the holidays.
I've ruined the whole thing now. I wanted to get to the very end of it where my real question for you is,
Forget about
oh my God.
vacuuming
What is
for up
happening?
to a month. Shark IQ robot does it
I've
for you.
ruined the whole
Then empties
podcast right
itself
now.
into a base you empty as little as once a month. And unlike standard robots that bounce around aimlessly, the Shark IQ
It
robot
won't. It's
maps
not
your
gonna
home
shut down.
and deep cleans row by row.
That's actually not a bad product. A Shark robot actually does a really amazing
All
job.
powerful.
Just make sure you don't have animals that have a habit of defecating in the house because the robot
That
will
happened to my sister.
paint
They
a pretty
brought it
picture.
It was everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Everywhere.
Yep.
gosh. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Anyway, I wanted to get to this point where at the end you do this masterful, beautiful counseling session with them. And then you turn to the camera. That's really the shot that I wanted to get. You turn to the camera and you talk about how important it is for them to get together because they have this child to raise. And what I want to know from you is where did you get your PhD in mental health counseling?
Nowhere. And our probably legal department's probably ready to talk to me now and say, hey, don't give out marriage counseling advice. Don't give out legal advice. We had to sit here for no, it's just a life, long lesson. I actually had a little bit of a experience, having a child and having, baby mama and having a baby mama, just really getting to that understanding that, hey, look, it's not about you. It's not about mom. It's about the child that we have together. And it's so important for parents to act like adults and to really sow into their child so they can have a very successful life. So it just comes from experience and just being able to identify and reflect where, maybe I made some missteps or maybe I did some things that weren't adult-like, and in the best interest of my child. So, you're able to give that back or pay that forward to someone else who may be going through or dealing with the same type of situation. So, experience.
I love it. Masterful.
I think that he was able to not only show his ability as a first responder there to adapt to the situation. He kind of put himself in that situation with whoever was there at the time and made his words count, but he also showed good leadership there by showing that, I'm going to use my experiences from my past and put it into work here. So awesome job, dude.
Love you, Casey. Love you, man.
I also think what you do so well every time is that you come with kindness and you come with authenticity every single time. And that wins every time. Kindness and authenticity wins every time. And that is totally what I see you do every week. So thank you for doing such good work. And also thank you for entertaining me every Friday night.
You can't make that stuff up.
I know. Go ahead, Diana. I've been talking too much. You go.
Well, and just kind of as a transition, I mean, obviously on live rescue, you're getting to see the fire department. They run with EMS. But Casey, this is directed at you because the dispatchers are an often forgotten component to first responders. Talk a little bit about, how the calls impact them and how they are involved, even though they're unseen. They really truly are the first ones on scene, even though they're not physically present.
So there's actually, and I forget where I read it because I would love to find it and hang it on the wall here in dispatch, but there was a study that was done that the average person, when you're listening to something, you imagine it in your mind. So you're picturing everything that you're hearing, and 9 out of 10 times you're making it 10 times worse in your mind than it actually is on scene. And there's very little studies and information out there, but they're starting to realize that effect that it has on that person, because you are experiencing it in a different way that people aren't used to. And it's hard to cope because you almost don't even realize you're doing it because it's happening in your mind, where you're picturing yourself on that scene, you're picturing that baby, you're picturing that accident. And then, before you know it, you do your job and it's over. And you have no idea, like, what happened? Did they go to the hospital? Did they live? Did they die? So there's a lot of uncertainty involved. And I think that closure that we've been able to kind of close lately with our first responders, with EMS, with some of the softwares that they're getting, where we could actually go out there and say, hey, great job on that call. That baby is now in the hospital, doing okay. Or sometimes just knowing that you did all you could and the outcome wasn't as good as you wanted. So it is a challenge today because, there's a lot of unknown. And then, of course, if you ask anybody out there, they do anything to ensure the safety of the people that we're supporting out there. And it's pretty awesome to see sometimes because, something happens, there's a 1024 activation or something, they're all hands-on. It's pretty awesome to watch the teamwork to ensure that you guys are safe out there.
And Diana, one of the other things too that I always love to say is about dispatch, and they are the unsung heroes, but really, man, they are the point guards, the quarterbacks of every call or every play that happens. And when you think about in the NFL or whatever sports arena, the quarterbacks get a lot more attention than what our dispatchers do. But they are the ones that are passing the ball or dispatching the call to those in the field, the receivers. So it's so important that we really, really, kind of highlight a little bit more that how important their job is to the whole overall picture of it. And, I appreciate them. And, Chief Allo has done an amazing job with his staff over there. And we see the effects of that on the road each day because they toss us great passes all day long. And all we got to do is just catch it and take it to the end zone.
That's an awesome
I've heard it called the dispatchers, the telecommunicators are the first responders. So you guys are getting it first. And in case you hit on it a little bit, but as we start talking about like technology improvements and new CAD that comes in, we're talking about like streaming video from the scenes from people's phones right into the dispatch center. So some of that reality that, like you said, it may help if the scene isn't what they thought it was, but also they're going to see some things that people shouldn't know.
That you can't unsee. Yep.
My hat's off to you guys. You do a great job.
That's actually one of the challenges that I think we're going to have to face in the next year or so is how do we incorporate that into the dispatch environment, and how many people do we expose to that? Do we have somebody who's, is that a position that we rotate through, or is that somebody who's their assigned duty is to do that? Is it a first responder from the field because they're used to seeing that? I think that's definitely a challenge that we're going to have to face.
What a perfect segue into our next question. So
one more thing,
no,
I want to add one more thing about the dispatchers, because I think not only do people not recognize that some people don't recognize that they are the first responders, but man, when I walked into the call center for the first time, I was blown away at how skilled they are at saving lives in the moment. I could not believe what I heard. It was so shocking to me. And I think that's another thing that people underestimate, like how medically skilled they are at doing that stuff. It's amazing. And the card system that you all have, like I had no idea. It's really, really fascinating. We should like do a community tour so that people get to see the kind of stuff that they're doing in there. It's incredible. Sorry, Diana, I just want to point that out.
No, that's an excellent idea. Socially distanced, of course.
Yeah.
Virtual dispatch tours.
I could go through on like FaceTime or something, or a Zoom call.
There you go.
We'll have to wait till the new building is built.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Chief Allo, you touched on it, and one of the great things is so we all work together in the community to provide emergency services between dispatch and Lee County EMS and the various different fire districts. The only component we're missing is law enforcement. But as much as we work together, we all face our own challenges. And so I just want to hear from each one of you what you feel the biggest obstacles or challenges are facing your department currently and moving into the future.
I think for us, the biggest challenge that we have today is it's the ability to find, not to say, is to attract quality personnel due to the amount of money that we're able to offer them. We train people here, and we expect people to come into this center as a career, to spend 5, 10, 15 years with us, hopefully a whole career. But in the reality of it, you can't really support a family and enjoy any of the fruit of life on the starting salary. So it's a big challenge that we're facing today. And we have worked with human resources. We're doing some compensation studies. They're doing a great job assisting us, but it's just national. It's not just here. It's the entry level. I think out of the 50 states, like I think maybe 42 states still consider a dispatcher a clerical like secretary behind the desk. So it's challenging to offer that compensation that they're really worth. The same thing with entry-level EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, teachers. It's that undervalued but much needed position. So, and then there's a second part to that, right?
Well, I hear from EMS and fire as well.
I think from our side, and not to give a cop out, but at the current moment, it's COVID, and I think resilience is difficult. It's been early March since this started. Our folks are tired. the look in their eyes when you see them at the hospitals. It hurts just to see what they're going through. They've been strong. I'm proud of every one of them, but is this a new way of life? Has their job changed? Has the way we deliver medicine changed? And trying to create that positive environment for them and try to provide for their needs is all that we can do. I feel helpless at times, but so that's the current, I think, most difficult, part for us. But outside of COVID, I would say that funding, as our community continues to grow, so does the need for emergency services. And that's all of us here. It's Tracy, it's Casey, it's you guys. And we typically work a year behind in the budget. So as we try to add resources, we're always, it seems like we're always in the rears. We're trying to keep up, but that's probably it for EMS.
But what Chief DiCicco won't tell you, because he's super humble, is that between the chief and the director of public safety, the leadership is so amazing that, they've done so much to try to really support the crews, including creating a department or a unit in some ways for crew support, which is how I got on board, which is how I know all you all. Putting out these massive refrigerated tents with tons and tons of food so that they can eat at any time and go cool off in the hot Florida sun. That's been a really amazing thing that you've done for the crews. And so you guys are doing such amazing stuff, even though you feel
Chief DiCicco? And in your comment about how, it kind of hurts to look around at the hospitals and see it in their eyes and stuff, just in somebody from the outside who kind of observes from our perspective, you're doing an amazing job. You could hear it in your voice on the calls in the morning. You could hear it in your compassion, the way that you care for them, and you're constantly looking for things to do. And you could hear it from the people too. They know you're out there for them, supporting them. So it's kind of goes into that servant leadership that I know that you practice, and it's definitely noticed.
Appreciate that, brother.
And definitely even coming from a fire world, and we told our staff in the executive, fire, session, what Director Avis and what Chief DiCicco has done in this, uncertain times is incredible. The way that they have led from the front, the way that they've actually given resources to their staff, and just to echo what Casey said, the crews on the road are doing what they do because they know they have good leadership behind them. And it's amazing to see how you guys have actually led in this season. And I'm super impressed with it. And, I like to give credit where credit is due, and you guys have done an amazing job. And, the other thing is that you guys even kept us as fire, branches or fire departments safe by saying, hey, look, in this first wave of COVID, we'll be the first ones on the scene. We'll actually keep you guys in your rig while we'll go in and actually, secure it to make sure that we can flatten the curve and, make sure that so many folks are not exposed to it. And that is commendable, to be able to say that, hey, look, we're going to step up and lead in this uncertain time. So we definitely appreciate it, brother. And it definitely does not go unnoticed. So please, know you guys are doing an amazing job. So.
I love your applause, Casey. No one's ever done that before. I love it. It's a new feature I'm seeing. How about you, Chief McMillion? What do you think are the biggest obstacles?
Oh, I thought I was gonna get away with it. Oh no!
See what you did there.
I almost had it. Our biggest obstacle is the word that you've already heard is growth. So just not growth of our city. Our city is actually growing extremely fast. It's growing faster with this infrastructure and houses and complexes and all these other wonderful, great things that adds to the value of the city. However, our infrastructure as emergency services, law enforcement, EMS and fire. Unfortunately, as Chief DiCicco said, we're a year behind, and sometimes even 5 years behind for trying to overcome maybe some other deficiencies in the past. So that's a huge area that we're trying, we're kind of struggling with to make sure that our 6 stations, future to be 7 stations, can still meet the needs of our community. But the other portion of growth is actually being able to do internal growth as an organization. And, we say in the fire, service all the time, one of the best things about the fire service is tradition. One of the worst things about the fire service is tradition. And, and trying to push in a different growth model, a different culture, understanding that we need to make data, decisions or decisions based upon data. looking at best practices, looking at ourselves constantly and constantly reviewing what we do, how we do it. Is it effective? Is it efficient? And do we get optimization out of all the things that we do? So that's one of the bigger challenges, just being able to take an organization and grow, and then also look at, retention, and also look at attrition. So as you start bringing out these different culture models and you start putting it into your organization, but as you start getting people to buy in, guess what? They retire. It's like, oh man, I got to start from scratch now. And that's okay, and that's okay. And we'll keep on doing that. But that growth of our city, the growth of us internally, are all those challenges that we see in the city of Fort Myers.
Awesome. Now, why would you have wanted to skip that? That was a perfect answer.
Huh?
I said, why would you have wanted to skip that? It was the perfect answer. So I want to move into what we were kind of touching on a minute ago, which is leadership, right? Casey, you were talking about Chief DiCicco's leadership, and tell me a little bit, each one of you, sort of how would you describe your leadership style, and how do you sort of personally connect to your people?
I think my leadership style is definitely servant leadership. I try to put myself in their seat as much as I can, so I understand their challenges and the emotions that they'll get throughout the day, and kind of be able to identify with that so that I can, better cope with it with them and give them the tools that they need. We're a family environment here. I think it's very important that everybody's able to speak freely. There's no judgment as much as possible. I mean, it still happens no matter where you are, but trying to create that family environment where everybody, we're here more than we are with our families most of the time. So making sure that everybody knows that everybody's cared for, we're a team, we're here for each other. And, there's no problem or no call that you take or anything like that that you have to keep internalized. You can speak to anybody you want about it, and we're going to help you out.
What about you, Chief DiCicco?
I like to say I strive for like more of a democratic leadership style, to where I try to bring everybody together, talk about a certain issue, listen to everybody's thoughts and opinions, and we can all make in some cases, a consensus decision. I think it's very important that everyone gets to say that way they buy in. There's always instances where you can't come to that consensus, and I heard a great well, I won't say that, but I think it's that's important. How I think I bring them together is I try to affiliate with them. So throughout processes, I try to be engaged in their work and understand what they're doing and show that I support them. I think it's important that you don't just bark down orders, that you actually are in the trenches and that you're involved. And it's something that I enjoy doing. If it wasn't for, kind of getting down in the trenches and doing the work, I think I would be stuck with Microsoft Excel and, balancing a spreadsheet. So that kind of stinks. So that's kind of my style.
I kind of go with what I call the VA approach, which is vulnerable authenticity. So basically, first of all, just knowing who you are. I know who I am as a person, and I'm the same person whether I'm in a city council meeting, whether I'm a one-on-one with the city manager, or whether I'm with the folks in the station. I'm gonna be myself, and I am who I am, and I don't have to put on airs. I don't have the ego. And the other thing is vulnerability. Being vulnerable with the crews and saying, hey man, I messed up on that, or hey, you were right on that, or and just giving praise and just being really real with individuals, just being yourself and understanding that, fire service bugles or whatever you have as far as rank or whatever, it doesn't make you the smartest person in the room. It doesn't make you the person who you can constantly lead and get optimization out of your crews. Being able to actually delegate and include other people in the process, I think, is the best way to lead, and understanding what your role is and just being okay with that. And then being okay with teaching people what your role is. This is what I do. Let me teach you. Unfortunately, a lot of other leaderships in the past have not necessarily been willing to share what they do because, for whatever reason, they would take my job, which is the most idiotic thing ever. The thing is, I want you to take my job. I want you to be able to do my job better than I ever could. So I think the VA approach is just being really real with people and being authentic with them, and also having genuine conversations. those things that we always talked about, you know, talk about family, you know, hey, how are your kids doing? How's your, you know, your wife doing, your husband doing, or, you know, what are you guys going on this weekend? And showing up as a leader. I think it's important to show up to events when you're not wearing a uniform, and, you know, whether it's the cornhole champion or whatever else is going on, fishing or whatever, just taking time out your day to be present with your crews and being real with them and authentic with them. So.
Man, vulnerable authenticity. I love that. I'm going to borrow it and use that because it is so critical, and it's such an often overlooked part of leadership. And especially in the fire service, vulnerability is not something that we traditionally value. You know, we're the heroes, we're the tough ones, we're, you know, first responders, we're there to fix things. We're not supposed to be vulnerable. We're supposed to help people in their times of vulnerability. And you each shared the unique challenges that your departments are going through. But I think one of the commonalities across, whether it's dispatch, first fire, EMS, police, is this looming obstacle of the mental health crisis that is facing our first responders, and the cultural challenges. Because we are so afraid of being vulnerable, we haven't been given the go-ahead to say it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to share if you're struggling. What are your thoughts about how to change that culture and the stigma of mental health issues in first responders?
This is my favorite question.
I think in order for that to change, that's definitely something that needs to happen with support from the top down and from the bottom up. It's got to go both ways, where we understand today that it's acceptable to have things affect you. It's acceptable to ask for help. That you're not going to be looked down upon. Your job's not going to be in jeopardy if you're struggling for something, whether it's in your personal life or something that you had at work. I think just that overall acceptance that you're supported, no matter what's going on in your mind, that nobody's going to judge you for it. Your boss isn't going to look at you like you're unreliable. You know, who knows how many different things are happening at once in somebody's life, and the one call that they just went on just put them over the top. And it could be nothing. It could be nothing relevant to their problems, their life. It was just somebody said something to them, and that was it. You know, and we don't know what's going on in people's lives. You know, there's been times where people ask me how I'm doing, and I'm just like, I'm good, I'm fine. You know, like I don't have 3 hours to tell you how I'm really doing, so I'm fine. But I think it's important that we all have that one person that we can, and I think it's important that that's outside of our inner family circle too, because that's somebody you're constantly talking with and engaging with. You need that peer who's going to see it from your level with experiences that you have in your life. You know, how many times do we go home to our significant other and, hey, how was work today? It was good.
Yeah.
What'd you do? Oh, nothing. It was busy.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh, okay. Well, you know, what do you want to do? And just get on with your day. You know, but you just keep on packing it in, and before you know it, it's you kind of either become numb to it or you just feel helpless. So I think what we're doing now is a huge start. We have the CISM teams countywide. We have the peer support teams that you guys are starting. Not only are they coming off the ground, but they're inclusive of all facets of public safety. So I think just that overall acceptance and having the support from our uppers and the bottom meeting in the middle is going to be what it takes.
I think to kind of add to it, if you take our professions out of it, so EMTs, paramedics, telecommunicators, firemen, and just look at a basic human. I really believe in, you know, what they call the snowball effect. So, you know, one bad instance could start this snowball that it just continually gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it crashes, you know, in the end. And we've as a society have put a lot of investment and money into our physical health, our wellness programs. I mean, at the county I worked at last, we had to go through this rigorous screening process. It was labs every year. It was all this stuff, an ultrasound every 5 years, a colonoscopy every 10 years. We spent a lot of money on that, but zero on mental health. But a lot of, you know, your mental health drives your physical conditions. So I do believe in investing, and I do believe in prevention. I think it's important. We've stood up this peer support program. Nicole's come on board. She's been amazing. And I think the way we sponsored it is that obviously there's, like you said, the stigma that surrounds mental health, and it's hard to get around. Some people will give in time when they see the success of the program, but what we've tried to do is, like, I've tried to remove like management away from it. So I've empowered the two captains that are in charge, that if you encounter one of our staff members that's in a crisis or who is struggling, don't come to me and ask me to give them time off. You have the authority to do that. I don't need to know about it. So if the employee knows that, their conversation stays confidential, I think they're more apt to trust and participate. So it's just small steps like that I think in the long run will pay us dividends.
Yeah, I love everything that has been said, and I think it's amazing. Making some mental notes, some physical notes about that, some things we incorporate into our agency. But I think a lot of it actually has to come from the philosophy and the theory. I think about Superman, or Achilles, or one of these great heroes, so to speak. But we all knew that Superman's weakness was kryptonite. It wasn't a secret. Every villain knew that. You get into the cartoons, they knew that. And I think for the heroes that are out there saving lives, our kryptonite is our mental health, or the negative parts of that. And so if we can actually just identify that, says, yes, yeah, you are a hero. However, you have this kryptonite that can cripple you, and you won't be able to be the hero if you allow it to actually build, as Chief DiCicco said, the snowball effect. And it may just be a little dose of kryptonite. This time you're okay. But next time it may actually grow to be this thing that actually cripples you. If you guys remember, Superman, how he would be when he's in the kryptonite world, and how's he affected. But if we can get our folks to really realize and understand that you can be the baddest and the best thing out there, however, you have this weakness. And it's okay to have this weakness. You need to be able to identify that weakness. Folks around you need to be able to identify that weakness. And then we can continue to go out and save lives. But if you're being affected by this, it's not just the 25 years or the 30 years that you're doing this job. This is something that can cripple you for the rest of your life. It can cripple you with your relationships. It can cripple you with the things that, hate to say, that truly matter in life. Your other relationships, your family involvement, your community relationships. And it can really just put you into a place where you're no longer who you are. And we all have a purpose and a place on this earth, and not having you being present would be bad. So just getting to the mindsets, and we being the ones who actually, give testimonies. Kind of grew up in typical Black church, and they would have testimonial service, and someone would give up and they'd give a testimony, and it was impactful, and it was good because other people would see that other people were going through some of the same things and how they overcame those things. So I think it's good for folks in the business to actually start championing it and speaking up and saying, I had a problem, and this is how I dealt with this, and this is where I am now, and I continue to monitor this problem. And then when our young individuals, or even some of our more seasoned folks, see these other people giving their testimonies, they will begin to open up, I believe, and identify that, hey, look, it's okay to actually share. It's okay to actually talk to. And I know, Chief Herndon has actually seen it when she's actually given some testimonies, and people have reached out to her in private, probably more than I even know. I've reached out to her in private and had conversations because, going back to the vulnerable board, she was able, and Steve was able to actually go out and be vulnerable for a second. And there were so many people from some of those examples, from those testimonies, that actually had the same issue. So I just think we just got to give more testimonies and really just talk about it in such a form where people feel comfortable and understanding it's just a thing. It's just a thing. We talk about refinancing houses all the time. The interest rates are low, man. Well, who'd you go with? I went with this bank. And, man, we'll sit for hours and talk about all kinds of things, but we won't talk about the things that are critical.
I think the key is getting people to see that it's not actually a weakness, and getting people to recognize that it doesn't mean you're soft, and it doesn't mean you're weak. Right. If you have an emotional reaction to a horrendous call that you run.
Means you're human.
Means you're human. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you to all three of you for supporting your members and making sure that they have a safe place to grow and develop, and that includes taking care of their mental health and their organization. So I commend each and every one of you for supporting them.
So I want to ask you another question about, one of the things is that we sort of all know each other a little bit, and not everybody out there knows you all. Would you answer this question for me? It's two parts. One is, tell us a little bit about sort of how you got here. You know, why did you choose this field, and how did you get here today? And also, during that time, what's your favorite memory of like the most rewarding call that you've ever had? A lot of times people talk about their most difficult call or, you know, craziest traumatic call, but we want to know, like, what's your favorite rewarding call? Whoever wants to start.
I can start us off. I have a call that meets both of those definitions, actually. So how I got here, I started off out of high school as a CNA in a hospital on an orthopedic surgical unit. And it was hard work because they're all total care patients. They're fresh hips, their knees, you know, you had to feed them. Yeah, it was crazy. It was good though, because it taught you how to take care of people. I moved from there into the ICU, then eventually to the ER, got my EMT, and I kept watching these like paramedics come through, and I'm like, I got to do this. And then eventually got hired to Manatee County, rose up the ranks there from a paramedic to a lieutenant to a deputy chief, and then eventually the chief. And then Ben came knocking, and I accepted his offer. So that's how I got here. So I've been in the business right at about 20 years, 19 years. So now to the call. So this call was, I was in the office. So I was off the road, off of an ambulance for probably at this point 5 years. And I hear this call dispatched like a mile and a half away from the office. So I hear the ambulance dispatched is probably like 6 or 7 miles away. So I'm like, it sounds pretty bad. I should probably go because I'll beat them there. So it came in as a vehicle accident with a pedestrian involved. Very vague CAD notes. As I pull up, there's a guy laying, it's a garbage truck. There's a guy laying behind the garbage truck, and there's like a Jeep Cherokee. The guy laying behind the garbage truck is missing both of his legs. So he was hit, he was loading garbage in the back and was hit by the Cherokee, amputated both of his legs. He's still alive. He's kind of propped up on one of his arms, and he's like, you got to help me up. You got to stand me up. I have asthma. I'm like, I can't stand you up. Your legs are missing, you know. So quickly tourniquet both of his legs. The truck gets there. Long story short, we go around to the hospital. The guy goes into cardiac arrest. He codes 3 or 4 times in the back of the truck. Get him to the trauma center. He coded an additional 6 times, 40 units of blood, plasma. I left there thinking that he was dead. No, I mean, there's no way he could have survived. In the ambulance, like his blood was running clear onto the floor. So worst call, right? So fast forward 3 years. I get a letter in the mail that says, hey, you're being subpoenaed. We need you to come testify. It was an auto insurance company versus, I didn't recognize the name. So the attorney says, I don't need to do any prep. It's just your recollection of the incident. Can you be at the courthouse such a time? I said, sure, yeah, I'll be there. So I get there. He says, text me when you were outside. So this is all purposeful, I think. But so I text him. He says, hey, I'll be right out. So he comes out of the courtroom. He turns my back to the door, like turns me around. He's talking to me. And then this guy like nudges me in the back. I turn around, there's a guy in a wheelchair, and it was him. The guy that was in the accident. He actually lived. He started to cry. I started to cry. You know, he thanked me for, he's like, wasn't for you, man, I wouldn't be here. You know, he knew the whole story. You left your desk, you didn't have to. So worst call, best call. So it was a neat experience.
I love it.
Wonderful.
I love that story. I'm so glad you told that story. I don't know if that was your worst call, though. I've heard you tell me other stories about horrendous calls. Most rewarding for sure. I love it. What about you guys?
So I'll go next. I got into this profession actually by accident. My father was a firefighter in White Plains, New York for 22 years at the time. And I was in school for finance and then psychology and then 10 other things. And I never really found my niche. So I was like, you know what? I want to be a firefighter. I went through all the testing, did everything I possibly could to put myself in a good position, started getting physically fit and in shape, and got hired by the White Plains Fire Department contingent upon my physical exam, my medical exam. So we did the screening and they found something wrong with my heart. And at the time, they were like, listen, we can't offer you this position because you have something wrong with your heart. So you're going to have to go get followed up with a cardiologist, and, good luck next time. So it was a big, like, that was a huge point in my life where I felt like, the biggest letdown, like, oh man, I finally got to do what I thought I wanted to do. And then this happened. So I went to a bunch of different cardiologists and kept on doing this and doing that. I applied for the test again, and the same thing happened. I actually had one cardiologist clear me, saying that it's just an athletic heart, you're okay, but their doctor wouldn't clear me. So the commissioner of White Plains Fire at the time came up to me and he's like, listen, we really liked you during the interview. Your father's been a great employee here. Have you ever thought about dispatch? And I was like, no. Like, who wants to sit behind a computer all day long and not get into the action? So he's like, well, why don't you come and visit and check it out and see if you like it? And, we have 3 positions open and you could apply for that. So I went down there, I checked it out. It was White Plains Dispatch is primarily police with a secondary of fire and then a tertiary of EMS. Like it's kind of that in order of, because it's a municipality. So I fell in love with it right away. I realized that I could still help in some way, the same fashion that I wanted to, but didn't have to actually be out there. So it was kind of like a by accident calling that I stepped into, and it just really, as soon as I finished my training and sat on the floor and started doing it, it was like, this is what I'm meant to do. So started applying down to Florida because, dispatcher in New York, right near the city, making, X amount of dollars, you can't really do much with your life. So I started applying to Florida. My sister moved down here. I applied to Manatee, to Lee County, to all up and down the coast, and not too many people at the time. It was right around right after the crash, the economic crash. So not too many people were taking chances on out of state. Lee County, Lee Control called me back and said, listen, if you're serious about this, get down here on the next flight, interview, and then we'll see what's up. You have to take a typing test. So next ticket, like every day for tickets available was like $150, whatever. Of course, the one that get me down there the next day was like $550. So we got the ticket, flew down, took all the tests, interviewed, flew back. 2 weeks later, I packed up my little apartment in my grandmother's basement with my wife and my kid and took down to Florida, stayed in my uncle's house for a few months, and finally got my own place and worked up my way through the ranks here. And that's how I got here. So it's amazing how something happens, just, it just kind of falls into your lap, and I'm lucky. I look at it like I'm lucky, Yeah, I have a stupid heart condition, but I found something that I really love because of it. So, and then one call that really hits home with me, it's not necessarily it's actually not even a call I took. I was at the Olive Garden with my family eating, and we were walking in to eat, and my wife went in first because I dropped him by the door with my little kids at the time, and I went to park the car. And I'm walking in after him, and she comes running out. She goes, CPR, right? And I was like, me? I'm not on the phone right now. I don't know what to do. So finally, I ran inside, and there was a guy in the Olive Garden to the right. You walk in on the bar and on the floor, totally gray, like everything that you pictured in my mind when I take a call and you ask them, what color is he, color changed? And they say he's ashen or gray. I'm like, that's it right there. So I jumped down, started doing CPR. Cape Coral Fire came in, EMS came in, and transported him to the hospital, and he lived. And it was cool because I got some acknowledgement afterwards. They said if it wasn't for that initial, attempt at resuscitation, he might not be here. So that's one call that really, when I think about it today, I still can't eat Alfredo sauce at the Olive Garden because it kind of get grossed out, but but it was definitely rewarding. So
for some reason, I don't imagine that you eat much.
Yeah, we can see you've really let yourself go since then. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and what a testament to the ability to overcome what a lot of people would see as somewhat of a crushing obstacle, not getting what they think is their dream job, but having the fortitude to try something else and say, hey, look, this, I understand that this didn't work out, but then ending up finding what really speaks to your soul is wonderful. So thank you again for sharing.
Absolutely.
My path is, I guess, similar to many, Paul and to Casey's. I started off going to college, and enjoying college way too much. And I found myself back home at my parents' house, and I was doing upholstery, which, paid decently, but definitely was no future in that. So my dad actually was in public service. He was in law enforcement. And he's like, look, son, you got to go get your civil service job. This is how this is done. And me being a young kid, want to be rebellious. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a cop. I'm going to be a fireman, So I went to firefighting school in Orlando there, and immediately within the first couple days of being there, just fell in love and just really found that niche of a job that, I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And while doing that, was in the city of Orlando, and I loved Orlando. That's where, I kind of grew up, and I loved it. And I wanted to work for Orlando Fire Department. That was my dream, my goal. So when I graduated Fire Academy in '94, Orlando only hired every other year. So I had to wait a little bit. They hired in '93, so '95 was going to be the year. So I'm like, cool. So I worked for the Department of Corrections for about a year. And I really learned what I did not want to do for the rest of my life. And I did learn a lot about people and myself. And so when Orlando got ready to hire in '95, it was a minority recruitment. So, brothers that's like, yeah, I got this, I'm certified, I'm ready to go. But unfortunately, Orlando was only hiring uncertified minorities, part of their thing. So it was kind of like, this makes no sense to me. Here I am, I'm a brother, I got certifications, I'm your perfect guy, but nonetheless, it wasn't meant to be. So I didn't start looking statewide. I had a brother who was living in Fort Myers at the time, and I got an application in at the city of Fort Myers, and I was able to get hired in 1996 here, and that's where I started my career. And then, of course, went to Iona McGregor in 2003, worked there for about 16 years, and just recently came back to the city of Fort Myers. How I got to be fire chief is still, I have no idea. Hopefully no one ever finds out how I got here, because I have no idea, and definitely definitely not the one should be here in this seat right now. But hey, we'll keep riding the wave until it gets to whenever someone figures it out. But no, no,
Your career path be looking like Hurricane Etta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of those paths, So it's crazy. So never where I, ever anticipate being, but I'm definitely thankful and blessed to be able to be here. My favorite call, or most impactful call, would have to be the fire station at City of Fort Myers, Station 14. I got to give you that call. There's so many other calls I could talk about and all this other great stuff, but the one that is actually notorious is this call at Station 14. So here's a setup. So here's a setup here. We're a young firefighter at Station 14, right off a benchmark. We had tasks for the day is actually to strip and wax the floors, as well as everything else, running emergency responses. On this particular day, our captain was on Kelly Day, was off. So we had a lot of actings. Our driver was acting captain, our senior firefighter was acting driver, and of course myself and another firefighter were riding backwards, in the rig. So as we start, getting ready to start our task for the day, we want to make sure we get lunch going, because that is a priority in the fire services, lunch. So we want to get going. We decided on sloppy joes and French fries. Sounds great. Sounds amazing. Let's get this going. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get some baked fries. And our acting engineer is like, no. We got to have some fried fries and, great oil. And I'm like, that sounds good. Everyone else is like, yeah, that sounds great. So let's do it. So we got the whole list going. The guy who was driving the truck that day goes to the store. Myself and another firefighter, open up the doors and start putting, stripper on the floor, start waxing and cleaning the floors. He's a single guy, I'm a married guy. So he's telling me all these escapades, and we're just having a good dialogue, good conversation. The other gentleman comes back with the food, and he's got all the food, the grocery bags, help him get in there, generally get to the table. And then we find out he found the smallest bag of French fries ever. I mean, this bag was tiny. It was like tiny. And here you got, 4 guys you got to feed, and you got this little bag. We're like, man, go back to the store, get some more fries. So he hops in the truck and goes back. So we, in the mindset of being efficient, say, hey, let's go and cook the sloppy joes. Let's get everything ready. And with the fries, let's get the pot of oil on the stove and get it heated up. So this way, when he pulls back in, sloppy joes are ready, buns are ready. Throw the fries in the grease. We got fries. Man, we're ready to eat. Efficiency, right? Let's do it. So in the middle of all that, we get the sloppy joes cooked. We get the oil start heating up. We go back to stripping the floors. Listen to his escapades again and all the stuff he's doing. We get toned out for a structure fire in Station 11 or Station 1 zone. Man, we jump on the rig. At this point, the guy who was driving, he's not there. He's at the store, so that means I'm driving. So I jump in the rig. I'm driving, rocking down the MLK. Sirens are going, and we're going. And Gary was the guy who was actually engineer, was the captain that day. Looks over and says, "Hey, Mac, Did you turn off the stove? I'm like, I didn't turn off the stove. Did you turn off the stove? He looks back at the guy in the back, Mike Lewis, like, hey, did you turn off the stove? Nah, man, I ain't turn off the stove. So we're all like, oh man, we wound up getting canceled from the call. Winds up not being anything. Whip the truck around and MLK, start heading back to the station. Like, Gary, do you want me to go back lights and sirens? He's like, no, we'll be okay. And we made it through every light, got back pretty quickly. As we came around the station, man, we were stripping the wax on the floor, so we left the door open, and we could hear the alarm going off. And as we come around, the blackest smoke ever, the thickest black smoke ever was pouring out of that door. Our station is on fire. So, yeah.
Zach, I heard about this story 20 times. I never knew you were involved in it.
Yeah, I was there. Some versions, I was the only firefighter there, apparently. So we park up, and we are totally discombobulated because we know how to fight fires in other people's houses. It's a little different, setup when it's your fire station that you just left and you're the cause of it. So we're kind of like, so we get off and we make it in. Unfortunately, we're not wearing gear. We probably should have been, but we weren't thinking. And we're stripping wax in the floor. So one thing we forgot as this black smoke is pillowing out of this station is that we had this slushy slurry of wax floor and stripper on it. So as soon as Mike hits that stuff, he just slips and then just levitates in the air for like 5 to 10 seconds, it seemed like a lifetime, and hits the ground. And I slip on top of him. We put the fire out, fastest fire I've ever put out in my life. And Gary's like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And then all of a sudden the phone rings. It's our battalion chief, Wally Peters. He's like, hey, we need you guys to come on down to station 11 so we can go over this review. And we're like, nah, chief, we need you to come out here. He's kind of like, no, stop playing. Let's get in the truck, come on down here. So nah, chief, we just burnt the station down. You might want to come on down here. So he does. We call Captain Sudol, who's our captain, and we say, hey, look, Cap, we know you've been trying to get this station remodeled for the last 20 years. We just got it done in about 20 minutes. The station will be remodeled. So it was just a great little laughing thing to keep you humble. I still have the pot on my wall right over there. The guys made a clock for me that actually was the culprit, the pot that was on the stove preheating for it. So, and I always say, hey, look, I say I was designed for teaching because all the fire academy students came over because it was a perfect V pattern burn on the cabinets and all that stuff. So that's my most memorable story, that burnt down Station 14. So, or I like to say remodeled Station.
There you
I like that. Well, we have kept you for an hour, and I know that I want to let you guys go, but I don't know, Diana, if you want to take this last question for them, and then we'll wrap it up.
You can go ahead, because I forget which one we said we were going to do last.
So it's really just.
Oh, yes.
It's really just a question of knowing how stressful this work is that you do. What do you do? What's your favorite thing to do on your days off? The thing that sort of soothes you and makes you feel good, makes you forget it all. Your de-stressor, your self-care.
Me personally, I like to go to the gym and pick up very heavy things and put them down. And take out all my stress and I just put my headphones on. I don't talk to anybody there. I just go at it for an hour, hour and a half. And usually when I'm done with there, I'm ready to do the family thing and relaxed and de-stressed.
I thought you were going to say baseball, coaching baseball.
Well, that just started up again too after COVID. And that's definitely, last week stepping out on the field with those kids, there's nothing like it. Having a parent come over and tell you like, what you told my son yesterday, he came up and told me at home and he's so excited to try. Like that's definitely a de-stressor too. Yeah.
I think for me, it's, I enjoy camping. So we've got a fifth wheel camper. So we try to get out twice a month and get into the woods, and it's quiet. Like Casey said, no one talks really out there. So a lot of campfires and peace and quiet. Now,
I thought you were going to say fly planes. Aren't you a pilot?
Yes, I am a pilot, but since I got promoted to the chief in Manatee, I've not been up in the air because work.
You haven't been up in the air since Manatee?
I haven't flown probably in 5 years, 6 years.
Oh,
work.
Let's go for a flight.
Yes.
Good. I'm ready.
Return again.
Cool. For me, it's family. I love spending time with my wife and my kids and all that great stuff and seeing them play sports. But what drills me down personally for my own personal makeup will be two things. One is playing basketball because it gives me a chance to really just get some physical play, kind of hang out a little bit, talk a lot of trash. I mean, just talk a lot of trash. That's so de-stressing, you know, talking trash. And then the other moments is actually driving. I like classic cars, and I have a classic car that I just like to take off, no radio, no nothing, windows down, and just drive and just know where to go, just enjoy driving and getting away for a day. So
That's awesome.
it's my outlets.
Well, Diana and I have a million other things that we want to talk to you about. Will you guys come back and do this again with us?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Awesome.
Absolutely.
On the edition, I can be with these two. These are my dudes. These are my peeps.
Hand clap. I love it.
And thank you guys for everything that you have done and that you're continuing to do to bridge the differences between all of our departments and really come together. And I hope the citizens know what an amazing team of individuals that they have protecting them at all levels. And I just want to thank you guys again for coming on this podcast and for continuing to do what you do every day.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good weekend. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.